Afternoon, beautiful people. I hope everyone is doing well today. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to join us. My name is Jefferson. I am the CEO and founder of Soul Wellness Social Support and Therapeutic Services. It is my distinct honor to spend time with you today at United Way of Broward to kind of help other healers and helpers navigate how we can really start taking care of ourselves, avoid suicide, burnout, but really start to unpack what it really is to care for ourselves and one another. I'm excited to be here. Yay. So we're going to go over my intro company, a little bit on my company, stages of change, practical self-care, and how we utilize all of those things to prevent suicide in ourselves and in others. But at any point you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, raise your hand. It's super interactive, and we will address them. So a little bit about us. We are wellness professionals bringing wellness to the BIPOC community. We realized that there was a very large gap in wellness professionals connecting with people of color, that were similar to them in language, understanding, experience, things of that nature. We know there's Black people and people of color that we heal communally and the same ways we experience trauma communally. So we wanted to bridge that gap and really be able to bring specialist people and help them throughout different walks and areas of life as they begin to heal and on their journey. We just want people to be seen, heard, valued, respected, and find places that they belong. This is one of those spaces in the Infinity Space. So during the training, if you have any questions, there's no dumb question. There's nothing you can say that's going to offend anybody in the room. We really want you to have an opportunity that if anything comes up for you, that we can kind of talk about it. This is not therapy, so we won't be processing anything, but we want to have an opportunity to really be able to address things that may be coming up for you that we can really help to mitigate any kind of burnout or lack of self-care throughout our time together. We believe in connection, community, and compassion. And what that means is that we spend time doing things like this where we connect to other wellness professionals and really help bring them into our social support family and really bring them into the unity of us being humans, having experienced hard things, and the compassion that we have to do hard things every day and go into the next day of work like nothing happened yesterday, or go to the next session or the next client or the next thing as though everything has been everything and nothing has ever shook us. So this is really an opportunity to give us for us to have compassion for where we are and where we've been, because our toolkit is full of things that we've experienced and that we've learned. So I'm sure everyone on here works with people on some level. Even if you're an administrator, you work with other people within your office, in your organization, and it can be very, very challenging when we don't take into account that our connection to others matter, how things are happening for us in our communities, whether that's at home, on our jobs, and our personal life impacts we go through, and the compassion to continue to show up doing hard things. It's been a pandemic for all of us. It's been a hot ghetto mess for me. It's been really hard trying to figure out and transition throughout all of that. And we've had to really adjust what self-care looks like for us. It used to look like getting massages and hanging out with your friends and having picnics and not wearing masks and getting on airplanes, all these things. And it's changed dramatically and drastically for most of us. And we have to kind of really go back to the basics of what it looks like for us to really care for who we are intrinsically, not just the fluff that we had been used to. We pride ourselves in being Haitian American women led. So we provide therapy and all of our services in English and Creole at minimum, with also having services in French and in Spanish to really address people that we are looking to serve. So how did we get here? On accident, but on purpose. So initially, when I first started doing trainings for United Way, I was talking to other superheroes. I was like, you know what? Save yourself first. Put your oxygen mask on. Check your capacity. Yada, 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 yada. And I realized that everyone that I was talking to was in pre-contemplation. They were like, save myself. There's no fire. There's no issue. There's no problem. I'm good. I've, attained the job that I want to be in. I've got optimal working hours. I got the caseload that I like. I'm doing work that I love. So what am I saving myself from? I have the capacity. I'm still doing all of the things. And I was like, Jess, you have missed the mark, because in order for me to check for my nearest exit, put my mask on first, look for the closest exit, make sure that I'm well, I have to be in a spot where I can at least assess that those things are necessary or of some level of importance. And what I realized, especially pre-pandemic and working with other healers and helpers, was that we didn't really understand what it meant to save ourselves first, because we're putting on our capes or where everyone else is running away from. So we're going into children being removed. We're going into classrooms where children are being disruptive. We're showing up for 211 when people are calling in the worst times of their life. We're peer support specialists, show people when they're having like a really rough time. And so like saving myself first means that I showed up to work, that I was showered clean and had my coffee when it was hot. And that was like the win for the day. And that, I mean, I had accomplished the goal of being well, but there was so much more to wellness. And I was like, just, you've remiss to not kind of go back a step and really help people unpack what it means to begin to decide to take care of ourselves. Because there's a decision process to start to take, to be able to save ourselves first. I have to decide first what that looks like. I have to decide what those parameters are for me. I need to decide what my needs are and what I'm saving myself from. So how do we do it? Like, I was like, what do we do to solve this problem? I was like, talk to therapists in therapist language and talk to non-therapists in ways they understand how we make decisions. So I use the stages of change. I don't know who here is familiar with substance use and the idea of the process of going from a decision to use to not use, and the process of kind of like admitting we have a problem and all of those things. The stages of change is based in a very similar model to that. It's a model that talks about how we choose to do things differently. 5 stages. They're not linear, which means that we won't go from stage 1 to stage 5 and stay in stage 5. They are definitely kind of roller coaster-esque. They kind of weave and go in circles up and down, if you will. But the stages remain. The stages themselves are concrete, no matter where you find yourself in that process of beginning to make a change. Stage 1, pre-contemplation. Stage 2, contemplation. Stage 3, preparation. Stage 4, action. And stage 5, maintenance. I'm going to go into what all of those mean, but first, who here has heard of the stages of change before? You can give me a thumbs up in the chat, raise your hand so I can kind of see. Aisha, let me scroll down because I can't see all the faces. Lori, thumbs up. Doris, clap hands. Ricardo, thumbs up. Catherine, clap hands. Okay, who's ever applied them to themselves in a non-therapeutic treatment, going to therapy, I want to get my life right, this is how I feel, impact versus intent way? Janelle, how did you use it when you did use it outside of the therapy practice way? I don't know if you're raising your hand to speak or you're just saying that yes, that you've used it before.
I did. I put in the chat box that I've been in pre-contemplation for a diet for a while.
Oh my gosh. So that's a good one. I think we can kind of stick with that. Everyone's kind of put on like their COVID 15, 20, 40, 75, 100, whatever, you know, give or take a decimal point here, a number here or there. We've kind of all put on some level of something, right? And so just like one French fry will make you fat, one salad will make you skinny. I've tried like the one salad to get skinny thing, it does not work. So those who are like vetting in that and they're going to go through and do it, don't waste your time. It's not going to work. So we're going to unpack what all of that looks like. So stages of change in a way that you're probably more readily used to it outside of like the very large jargon that we use as clinicians. Pre-contemplation, there is no problem. These clothes still fit? There might be a problem. Babe, I am sucking in, just zip up tighter. It's your fault you're not zipping hard enough. Like, we're starting to be able to notice. Now we're gonna stick with Aisha's prompt of starting a diet, right? We're like, okay, well, no, it's your fault that you're not zipping the zipper strong enough. My Spanx, you put my Spanx in the dryer, so now they're messed up. And we're kind of starting to say, oh, there might be a problem. Then we're like, tag, everything is small, even like my joggers, like my lazy pajama pants are kind of get a little tight. So now we're in preparation. I've acknowledged the problem from pre-contemplation. Okay, a lot of things aren't fitting right now. Like a lot of things just aren't working for me. My body type has changed, you know, whatever it may be. Now we're like, tag, well, what do I have to do? How do I address this problem that I'm now aware of, right? Now we're in preparation. We're now saying, okay, well, you know what? Maybe I'll start drinking water. Maybe I'll, you know, park 3 spaces back on my way to Starbucks to get a super high fat drink. I'm going to go to Starbucks. I'm going to give myself extra time to walk to Starbucks. I'm going to go through and I won't go in the drive-through. Find a way to begin to implement those things. Now I'm ready to fix the problem. That is action. I begin putting in place the steps that I've talked about. So even when it's hot and it's 12:30 in the afternoon and the sun is blazing and I'm going to Starbucks, I still park 3 spaces out. I'm gonna get my drink. I'm gonna enjoy that part of it, but I'm gonna make that small change to get closer to my goal of having overall wellness. Maintenance. I've, switched out my sugars for something else. I'm finding a new kind of like fun way to have like mocktails. I'm doing all these other things. I'm incorporating more greens into my food. I'm doing all of these things to be able to do it. And now I'm starting to see some changes, and I'm encouraged to maintain what's happening. Who's ever been on a diet? If I could raise my legs and not break my back, I would.
I have.
Like the way I could raise my whole body and then spin in circles. Who's gotten like great results? They worked out. They were like, woohoo, I feel great. The toilet got lower. Their legs and their back hurt. They were like, oh, look at this. I look good. The little jelly roll stopped jiggling a little bit. Then you were like, oh, girl, you doing it. And after that one little thing of progress, she was like, mission accomplished. 4 pounds down. You win and play it. Yeah. And the gym don't see you again. You back in Starbucks drive-through, regular drink order. You didn't gain those 4 pounds, but you reverted the behaviors, went back to what you were before. So that one drink didn't get you fat, but the behavior, the thought process behind changing the behavior that you implemented will get you back to gaining weight. Maybe you won't gain 4 pounds, maybe you'll gain 12. Like me, I never just gained back what I lost. It's like, hey, I brought you some friends. Like, it wanted to enjoy the sorority, but like, hey, this is my whole new set of friends, and now we're gonna all be on your waistline. And that often happens when we revert back to decisions we've made to take care of ourselves. So, critical points. I'll be referring to you guys and to me as a superhero. Why? Because you are. No one gets into social services because they're like, ooh, I want to make money. This is glorious. I love seeing people like in the darkest days of their life and just showing up. Everyone else kind of runs from the work that we do. People like hear what we do and like, but why? Like, what were you thinking? Like, was nowhere else hiring? Why'd you go into this field? Because we care. And what happens oftentimes is for superheroes, the most we neglect is the one in the mirror. So if your camera's on, the person that's in your little box with your name on it, that's who you neglect the most. That's who you have the most horrible relationship with, of all the people that you know, because by the time we get done with doing all of the things being present for everyone, we often don't really engage in things that feed our soul and let us do well. And I don't mean like showering, doing your laundry, washing dishes so you don't have roaches. Like, I mean like actually taking care of yourselves. For example, what do you actually like to do? Not what do you do for a living, who you're married to, what your title is, your position in your family. What do you enjoy doing? Drop them in the chat. Things that you enjoy doing that feed yourself. So I started listening to podcasts. And it's like reading without having to have a book, and TV without having to see anybody's face. Like I get to like kind of like travel the world through just audio. Ooh, music. Yes, we can be friends, Fabiola. Music. Yes, I love music. Crafts, watching funny videos. Oh my gosh, hi Sylvia. Sorry, that's my friend, guys. Something that I learned that I love doing. Oh, sleeping. Oh my gosh. When I worked a super high stress job, I had to figure out like how to transition from like saving lives and being constantly in crisis and hyper alert to like coming home. Ooh, video gaming. My husband loves those. Sunbathing, tanning, binge watching Netflix. I binge watched a show the other day, and it's like you have to be committed. Like it's like you have to pee, you can't eat. Like you have to watch the show. Like it's called A Million Little Things, and I just started watching it. I'm already at the end, like 4 days later. Like I've watched a lot of like the whole couple of series, and it's super engaging. Oh, excuse me. So back to what I was saying. So like I started coming home from this really high stressful job. I loved the work, but it hated me, right? Like I loved the work. It hated me. It hated my body, hated my overall wellness. So I would sit in my car for like 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours sometimes, and listen to Jim Gaffigan. Ooh, music and reading books. Love, love, love. And Jim Gaffigan is a comedian who makes fun of life. Like he just looks at life and talks about it, and you're forced to engage. Like one of his favorite bits, well, two of them now that I'm a mom. The first one before I was one that makes sense was Children are Terrorists. I didn't understand it until I became a parent. And he talked about like going on vacation, like having to be quiet so you don't make the little terrorists and all these things. And it was really funny. The other thing was like, he talked about overachievers and normal people. And I was like, what are you talking about? So he was like, an overachiever's person's going to take the escalator and run fast or run up the stairs next to the escalator trying to beat you. The escalators are going to be, why are you running? Like, where's the fire? If you want to get faster, get on the escalator and kind of just stand still. And so like, nobody does that, because I hadn't really ever like looked at people. Like when I was peopling, it was never on an escalator. It's kind of like you got escalator to go from place to another. I was in California for a work trip, and I'm standing like all cute, suited and booted, got my little work bag on the escalator, and somebody comes past me. Like, I guess there's a fast lane on the escalator. So the fast lane on the highway is the far left lane. That's not escalator, is the right lane. This guy comes to the right lane of the escalator, like, and I lose it. I am like cackling hard down, guttural laughing. And I look like I'm hearing voices because I'm literally like in tears, because I had spent some time taking care of myself prior, and I recalled the experience of what I had heard. And I was like, there are really people who run up the escalator? Like, for why? How come? And it just tickled me. And while I wasn't listening to that at that time, I had engaged in self-care that my body recalled, right? You know how the body keeps score for trauma, because our body also keeps score for things that we really enjoy. Like, it just bubbles up with like yippee skippies and all of like the great feelings and emotions and like chemicals in our body. Like, they're like, ooh, I do feel like this, When you see your kids oxytocin, hopefully it's like, woohoo, I'm really happy, I love them. And we're doing things that help feed us. But how often do the practices that we do on a day-to-day basis represent the things that make us feel alive and cared for? Who is playing video games every day, sunning, tanning, binge watching Netflix every day, listening to music, reading every day? Who's podcasting every day? Who's getting good quality of sleep every day? Who's crafting every day? Who's laughing every day? Who's traveling every day? Who's doing the things that we have identified that feed our soul and keep us well daily? I can put both my hands down. If I can get under my chair, y'all can see I would get under my chair, because somebody puts on this training. I'm like, man, I mean, I watched something yesterday, but I watched it while working, so I didn't feel like it was like 3 o'clock in the morning while I was working. So I want to be clear that we're not combining the poor behavior with something that's going to kind of get us through. So I'm not saying like binge watching Netflix with your laptop on your lap trying to get a report in. I mean, literally just binge watching Netflix, just reading, not multitasking and doing those things, because that is the true test of caring for ourselves. So when we think about, do our practices represent us? When you think about what I just talked about, like in how do we actually care for ourselves day to day, where do you find yourself in stages of change? Did you think that, binge watching and doing work at the same time was a problem? Like that you weren't actually finding spaces to care for yourself in other times? Did you think that, not creating that space for yourself to get good quality sleep was a problem? Or were you just noticing it because now like you're cranky, you're short tempered at work, or you're snapping with your kids, or like you're yelling at the person at the drive-thru in Starbucks, or upset the light tank too long to turn green. Like now you're like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And you're like, I'm just frustrated. No, you're just not taking care of yourself. Like it's not like there is something else. We're talking about like the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is we're either in pre-contemplation or contemplation. We have not begun to prepare to take action, or we have started and we have backslid, if you will, or regressed back to, well, 4 pounds down, no problems here, crisis averted. I had a salad today, but we're not actually feeding our souls or giving ourselves the fuel that we need to continue to be super, to continue to like exhibit our powers in the greatness that our community is depending on us for. Those that we're connected to are depending on us to walk into their hard day, bad day, and be well, not like unkempt, poorly slept, not having eaten or taken care of ourselves or filling ourselves. Then we're pouring out on fumes. I know that we are right now in the summertime, and so people's children are home, summer camp is going on, people are getting flued out, they're traveling, getting passport stamps, resorts are popping, Rapids is open again, you people out here with their summer bodies, summer bodies, bun rolls and all. And we're outside, right? Outside is open and we're out there brunching, doing whatever. Suicide is not taking PTO. Burnout is not like, oh, it's June? Y'all good. I'll see y'all in August, October. It's not waiting for seasonal affective disorder to kick in. It's like, hey, you got time with your family? They stress you out. Hey, this is supposed to be good, but it's really hard, and you're not living that picture perfect highlight life, and stuff is still hard for you, even though like You have the house, the kids, the husband, the wife, the whatever your ideal was, and you're still struggling. And everyone else is killing it in the game. They're doing great. Their hair's not falling out. They're not gaining any weight. They're making enough money to cover gas 5 times because gas is expiring in 10 seconds and gas is $17 a gallon. And they're unbothered. The cost of food rising is not bothering them. You're trying to figure out how I was barely making it before the pandemic. And now people are on vacation and they're out and about and they're canceling sessions. My productivity is down, but I still got to make my mortgage or my rent, and my rent went up and I got to pay my gas and all of that. How am I going to make it and show tomorrow with a smile? Like, whoo. So suicide and stress do not take PTO, nor should self-care. The same way you're going to make sure your kids are taken care of, they've eaten, they're washed and bathed, you're a pet parent or a plant parent, you make sure your pets and whatever else you got around you are thriving, your clients are thriving. It is our due diligence. It is imperative that we are doing that for ourselves, that we are tapping into the things that feed us and engaging in them regularly, because the hard stuff is not like, oh, well, you had a bad day today, your auntie is sick, your hair's falling out, I'm going to be nice to you. It's like, okay, no problem. Double up. Ooh, that's gonna, anybody play Mario and they like power up and like do and they get big and they start blowing little fireballs. You only have a little bit of time to blow those fireballs. It's like, hey, well, now that you have these fireballs, we're gonna kind of remove any obstacle from you. It's like, okay, now you got these fireballs, we're gonna go through, you have things blowing fireballs back at you, little spiky ducks, all these other things start to happen because you have more capacity. But even if you don't have capacity, life is going into life. Are we going to prepare ourselves to meet life on life circumstances? Because if not, passive suicidal ideations, intrusive thoughts, poor emotional intelligence, poor habits creep up on us faster than we think. And the numbers are rising. Suicide's not going down. It is the #2 cause of death in America and the #1 preventable. And we're seeing it more in wellness professionals. We're seeing it more in police officers, more in other therapists, more in mental health places. People that we thought had it together and that were doing it, killing in the game, are waking up like dead. Like they're waking up having taken their own lives, or like really not doing well. And it's important that we're connected to people and we can say, hey, Aisha, you good? Like, are you all right? As a person that's connected to that person. In compassion, not like to be demeaning or belittling, just say, hey, like, it's been a lot. You know, how are you? How are things really going? And really checking in like from a place, or just saying like, hey, I value having you in my life. You never know whose joy of life and death you're stepping in. When I get a text that's just like, hey, Jessica, like, I think you're amazing, you're doing a great job, I'm in tears almost every time. Because I don't see myself as this great, amazing, whatever, you know? I'm just getting up and doing what needs to get done. But there are those out there that are counting on you to show up and take care for yourself, because then you can take care of them well and show up in their community, connected to them in compassion for where they've been and where they're going. Okay, for all my type A'ers, raise your hand. Don't raise your hand. Don't at me, all of the things. The goal in the stages of change and implementing self-care is not perfection. It is not a gallon a day, every day, 5 workouts, 2 a days on Saturdays, no carbs, all keto, paleo, South Beach diet, neglecting yourself, throwing out all the carbs in your kitchen. It is not only watching things that make you laugh and burning down Channel 7 News and WNBC and all of those things, and not engaging in what's happening in culture. It is the constant start, change, and pivot. I'm trying this thing to take care of myself. I don't like water that much. I'm going to drink coconut water instead. Getting some fluids in your body, great. Electrolytes, you're going to go Gatorade, Pedialyte, whatever. But I'm going to start introducing healthier options into my diet. Back to the idea of what Aisha said as far as like pre-contemplation for diet and taking care of ourselves. Start that. Then we change it. Gosh, I can't drink that much water. My bladder, doesn't allow for it. I'm in front of a computer all day long. I have to really like change what my wellness was. Maybe I start putting infusion pouches into my water. Like when I was pregnant, I wasn't getting a large volume of water, but there's like these infusion pouches you can put into your water that make it like 16 bottles of water in the 1 bottle that you're having. So even though I didn't have the capacity to ingest more, I was able to change what I ingested and what it did. And then I pivoted how I felt about it. So it wasn't like, oh man, you failure. You didn't get, your full gallon of water. You didn't get these. Whatever your goal is, it was okay. Well, how can I change what's going on so I can still heal? What happens is, set this goal. I'm going to work out 15 days a week. I'm going to do 137 sit-ups in the next 5 minutes. And then we're like, oh, this did not work. So we change it. Maybe you do a seated workout and, you know, instead of doing fork and donut curls, you put up a little 3-pound weight and in your meeting, you're curling, whatever. And then you pivot. Okay, what I thought was going to work is not working. Early morning workouts and I are not friends. I sleep to my workout every morning. So I'm going to get up at 5 o'clock morning workout. That's a lie. I'm not. So I could then say, okay, well, you know what? When is ideal for me to get this in? Maybe I can't join a CrossFit or a gym that requires me to train exercise. Maybe I can just go through and say, you know, I'm going to walk my daughter every day. I'm going to put her in her stroller when it's time for bed, after, you know, she's eaten, before her shower. Let her be outside with me, get some air, get some fresh air. And I'm still putting in exercise. I'm moving my body, but I've pivoted with those. Now I've created that with a task and I'm engaging with somebody that I love. So it doesn't feel as daunting to be like, oh man, I need to work out. I've got to leave my husband and my daughter to pick up and go. I can say, hey, you know what? Let's go on a family walk. And now Marcy's where she's like, bird, dog, fish, woof, woof, cat. And she notices the whole world. So we might not go far or fast, but we've gone, right? And that's the pivot. It's not the idea that our self-care is going to be this great, like robust SOP library, things we knock out, but it's the idea of things that weren't working for me before when I was young. I'm now actually implementing an action and I can maintain it. Can you maintain one walk around your block one night a week? Can you maintain, you know, taking your kids out for ice cream and walking to Publix to pick it up if it's close to your home? Like, can you maintain doing like 20 minutes of reading a week? Like if you just break down 5 minutes of just siloed reading in the morning, you get to give yourself 5 minutes of reading or quiet time or meditation. Can you start changing pivots where that makes sense in what your life looks like, right? We begin to take care of ourselves. You know what? I'm going to do everything now. And if you could really do everything now and it would be applicable and practical, you've already been doing it, right? So it's really the idea of like the constant start, change, and pivot. And it's not to be perfect. We just want to create a practice. Whether that's a personal peace procedure of you getting in the morning and meditating, and like before your feet touch the floor, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3. Before I get my phone, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3. Those are the things we're talking about, is the practical, applicable way to go through and do these things. Just consistency. 98% of this is just doing it. Like, the hardest part of it is just doing it. And if you're doing something small, and you do it 100% of the time or 98% of the time, it feels better than doing something large 1%. And so we start to like really like bit mail it and do the smaller thing more consistently. When we add something larger to it, it feels more manageable. It doesn't feel daunting and overwhelming because we've been consistent. Every time I read this, it gets stuck right here because I have what I call a burnout personality type. I be trying to avoid being human. The superhero thing is not like just by chance. Every opportunity I get to try and avoid being human, I'm like, oh, put me in the game. I got it, coach. I can do it. And so Michael Gunger says, burnout is what happens when you try to avoid being human for too long. What does that mean? Like when you hear that, how does that land for you? You can just take your thing off of you and share or put it in the chat. But when you think about like trying to avoid being human for too long, for me, it looks like not getting adequate sleep. It looks like forgetting to eat. It looks like overworking and underresting. It looks like not worrying about how things feel in my body, but just kind of like pressing on so stuff can get done. Whoo, come on, Doris, not listening to your body, not sleeping when you're tired. All right, at time. We'll just keep it real simple and just at just next time. What else? What is it like for you? Like when you know that you're like tapping out and you're on the verge of not being well, how do you catch it? Like I normally catch it when I'm sick. Like I'm like, oh man, like yesterday I was like, Aisha girl, like whoo, this past week we're gonna run in. My body said, sit down, sis, sit down. And I said, okay, then it sat me down. I was like, okay, you're not gonna listen, no problem. Pushing through even when you're sick and know you need to rest. Everyone just at me next time because I can relate. So what are the things that we see, right? So like pre-contemplation, there is no problem. Contemplation, there may be a problem. What are the behavioral patterns we're noticing that happened before we're too tired, too sick, too unrested, too cranky, too over it? Like, what do we notice in ourselves? Because we think of behavior as a pattern of things, or for CBT, like thoughts, feelings, behaviors, they're all linked. What's starting to happen? For me, I didn't get groceries on Saturday when I was supposed to. I decided to go to brunch with my girlfriend instead and come home because it was hot. And I was 12 o'clock, I'm gonna do it no more. To try and go in the morning. Then I'm like, oh man, it's time for dinner. We'll just go out to eat. And I'm like, man, I want to spend all this money. Why is McDonald's $15 for one meal? And I'm frustrated. I'm like, oh, well, I'm just not gonna eat. I'm not gonna spend all this money. Then it spirals down because now I'm hangry and I'm cranky and I got a headache because I didn't fuel my body. Because what seemed like a quick choice in that start pivot change was I was going to, oh yes, forgetting our basic needs. Oh my gosh, yes. Yes, you get a gold star. Like, yes, that like, oh my God, yes. Not delegate at me next time, not delegating tasks when you're overwhelmed. That is probably like my kryptonite, my Achilles heel, whatever, like that hardest thing. Because I feel like if I delegate it, I gotta check on it. So that I'll just knock it out myself and work 16 hours versus having to tell somebody, can you fix this or update that? I'm presently working through that. Sometimes it's easier done yourself, and easier by air quote. Oh, hello, little human. Husband, can you take her, please? Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you. Speaking of not caring for yourself, my husband knows that I've been up since 8 o'clock working and that I'm doing training. He literally just made breakfast and brought it here to me. I eat. After I was like, what do you got here? So like really like, one of 3 siblings, everything falls on me. It's, can I say it's ghetto, like being in family with people? Like it's like I love my family, but it can be one of the most ghetto places on my planet. Like to then people just constantly refer to and do things and send them to you. Oh, people want to, because we want to take control of everything and fear that they will do it wrong. Yes, 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 yes. That is definitely a thing. And so, how do we know when to say no, when to delegate, when to pivot, when to be like, I'm unavailable, when to put our phone on do not disturb, when to put in a away message, when to say, these are my parameters? I don't know who knows who Nedra Webb is. She's probably like one of the only therapists that I fangirl. She talks about things that lead to burnout. She actually did an entire thing on burnout, a series. She's actually partnered with Facebook or Meta to do different things. Listening to people who complain about the same thing. Doing your best with little appreciation for your work. Dispensing advice to people who don't value your feedback. Unhealthy dialogue with unhealthy people. Doing things that don't spark joy. Lack of balance, harmony in your roles and duties. High expectations at home, work, and relationships. Having a strong urge to control situations outside of your control. It sounds like she's reading us to filth, y'all, because all of this stuff that we're talking about, right? We're talking about like working hard, trying to find time for ourselves, doing our best. And sometimes the person who appreciates our work the least is us. It's like, oh, you missed that. You didn't do that well. You could have done this better. And who's just very, very judgmental over ourselves is us, right? So when I talk about like what I dub this burnout personality disorder that I told myself that I have, it's that I've done something that's great, right? The rest of the world, like, this is amazing. So I'm like, nope, did you see that? Did you see that error? We start to pick apart the things that we've done.
I'm about to leave right now. That's one of the things that I send you about the.
Thank you. And we're constantly kind of in that rhythm of like trying to undo the thing, right? Who has a lot of issues at work or at home? I got a lot. And sometimes in that urge to control, in that, as Sylvia talks about, like fear of people doing it wrong, some things I gotta let somebody else do. Like I just be like, you know what? If it falls to the floor, it falls to where I just can't be the person to do it. Okay. The next thing we're going to do, if you've been with me for any amount of time, the protocol is the lover of my clinical heart. It is an opportunity for us to hold the mirror and say, hey, where are we right now? What do I have going on? What isn't working for me? And where does the work that I do day in and day out land me as a person? So the protocol measures compassion, satisfaction, burnout, and secondary trauma. I'm going to escape this and move to the actual tool so you guys can see it and engage in the presentation. So thumbs up, I can see that screen. Thumbs up, just anyone, thumbs up so I know, okay, perfect. So this is the Protocol to Professionally Qualified Life version 5. And what I'm gonna ask you to do is grab a paper and pen wherever you are, and we're gonna begin it. You need to number your paper 1 through, I believe it's 30. It is. Can everyone see that? So the protocol is based on the last 30 days. When you help people, you have direct contact with their lives. As you may have found, compassion for those you help can affect you in both positive and negative ways. Below are some questions about your experience, both positive and negative as a helper. Consider each of the following questions about you and your current work situation. Select the number that honestly reflects how frequently you've experienced these things in the last 30 days. So today is June 28th. Between June 28th and May 28th, you're going to rate the following 30 fields from 1 to 5. 1, I have never felt this way. 2, I rarely feel this way. 3, sometimes I feel this way. 4, I often feel this way. And 5, I very often feel this way. I'm going to, oh goodness, sorry guys. I'm gonna set a timer for 8 minutes. Junk is right about there between 8 and 10, so that you have an opportunity to fill this out. Hope everyone has pen and paper available. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat. I have my chat box. And I'm gonna mute myself and I'll come back when 8 minutes are up. No, Doris, we're going to score it together in a little bit. There is a process to how it's scored. Some things are scored directly, some things are reverse scored, and each score goes with a different measure of the three measures. A very good question. Is anyone else done? We have about 3 minutes left. Sylvia's done. Just type in the chat when you're done. I can't see everyone's screen or their video if they're putting their thumbs up. I have like a very truncated view because I have the presentation up. Okay, Janelle, Lori, Fabiola. I got you, Daryl. Fine. Berlingo, I have you as well. There's about 5 people who have not completed it yet. We're going to wait for them. We've got about 1:44 left. Just at the minute mark. Looks like 4 of us still haven't finished. Make that 3. Okay, 2 more. We got about 10 seconds left. All right. Perfect. So these were the assessment outcomes. Everybody needs to read them, and then we'll score. Actually, let's do the scoring first, and then we'll read it. And go to the other presentation, show you guys how to score it, and then we will come back and okay. So remember we talked about scoring and reverse scoring. So I wanted to kind of go over to you what reverse scoring is. So there are three sections: compassion, satisfaction, burnout, and secondary traumatic stress, aka vicarious trauma. When you reverse score a question, so for example, for compassion satisfaction, you'll total the numbers for numbers 3, 6, 12, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 27, and 30. Burnout, you're going to score number 1, 4, 8, 10, 15, 17, 19, 21, 20, 29. The numbers with the star will be reverse scored. So let's say for number 1, you scored a 4. That 4 is worth 2 points when you're doing your scoring. So anything that has an asterisk next to it, you're going to reverse score. Anyone have any questions on that? We have about 5 minutes. That takes generally a little bit less time because you already have the answers, just kind of computing it. But I have the chat open in case anyone has any questions. I'm going to mute myself while you guys do your scoring. Same thing. If you finish, just let me know in the chat so I can gauge where everyone's at in case we need the full 5 minutes or not. And we're scoring all 3 sections. Bye, Fabiola. Thank you so much. If people are done, just continue to let me know when you're done in the chat. If we need to take some time out for those who finish, we will. This part is very, very important. It's really kind of assessing where we are. I would like to curate trainings that you can take back with you that really give you an idea of where you are and what you need to change, or if you're doing really well. And so I really want to make sure that we have that moment available for you all. see Doris is also done, no worries. That's 3. Wait for everyone else to finish. 4. That's the 5 minutes, but I'll give those who haven't completed an opportunity to finish this. This is a very important part of our training today. Aisha, have you completed? Is that what you're saying? Oh, okay. Thank you, Sylvia. I'm still gonna wait for everybody to finish. Like I said, this is a very important part of the training. Okay, no problem, Daryl. Again, I'm just waiting for everyone to let me know they've completed their scoring. If anybody has any questions about the scoring, please advise. Thank you, Catherine. I'm gonna give about another minute to get everybody all in, and for those who haven't been able to get it, even though I think it's pertinent, no worries, Danielle. They'll be able to see it on the replay at a later time. So for those who are unable to do something, to wait till about 1:05. That's in about 1 minute, and move on. That way, I'm able to get those who have completed it kind of ahead of the game, and really with the tools they need before our time is up, and do our due diligence to really give them the tools to we're able to. And for those that can't, we totally understand. And for the first time ever, the replay will be available. If you've completed it, you want to just read over like what the average scores are and what they mean. In the meantime, it is 1:05. Let's go back to the other ones. I can show you the outcomes. Okay. As you are all in, I'd like for maybe 2 people to just turn their camera on and share how they did in comparison to how they thought they would do. Maybe not necessarily your scores, but anything you learned through this assessment. One thing that I note every time I take it is that depending on how honest I am with myself, I can see like a direct mirror to what's happening in my body and my overall wellness.
I actually didn't have the time to compare my scores to the results, but I do have my numbers.
Okay.
For the first one, I got a 49,
Mhm.
and the second one I got a 24, And then for the third one, I got an 18.
Okay. Sounds like you're doing really, really well. Do you feel like, let me go. Hold on. It's another presentation. Do you feel like you were on par where you thought you were? Do you feel like the work that you do is really, really fulfilling? You feel like, oh my gosh, this is absolutely amazing? Because your scores are really good. So
Yes, it does. When I hear moms, when I see their process and when they tell me, wow, like I have come such a long way, and they thank me, to me, that's like, okay, I'm doing a good job, right? You know, I'm making a difference. And I think that that's kind of like the main reason why I chose this career, because I like to help people and I want to make sure that, you know, I can help them in any way I can to improve their lives and their mental health.
As far as your burnout and like the capacity for burnout and like engaging in self-care and compassion fatigue, like how did you think it was going to be compared to what it actually was?
I mean, the burnout is 24. Is 24 okay? It's a bad.
Oh yes, no,
I don't
good.
even know.
I want to say it's under 40. 1 second. Hold on.
Okay.
For you.
I mean, the job, it's overwhelming, but I think that I do my best to, like I try to work out 6 days out of the week. I try to eat healthy. I try to do self-care when I can with my children. And just separating the fact that you can help everybody, right? Because it's kind of like a 50-50 job. There's so much I can do, but if the other person, which is my client, is not ready for that change, then it's not really up to me, right?
Right.
Yes. So it's
What
just
a good reframe.
What was that?
So what a good reframe, a different way to look at it.
Yes.
So 43 and below are a positive ability to be effective in your work. You said you're at 17 or an 18?
I got an 18 for the traumatic stress.
Okay, what was your burnout score?
24.
Both of them beautiful. So 43 and below is for burnout, and 50 and below is for secondary trauma. So it sounds like you're doing really good and you're getting really fulfilled in your work. Also, you had some really cool things that you did for self-care. So it sounds like you're really on a very good trajectory to take care of yourself. This is what again will be available. So when you find maybe that you feel you're not working out as often, things aren't working like how you ideally imagine them, you can kind of go back to that start, pivot, change, and look at what things you can engage in more and engage in less. Does anybody else want to share? Thank you so much. That was amazing. I appreciate you sharing so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sylvia says she'd like to share.
Go for it.
Hi, everyone. For compassion satisfaction, I got a 36. For burnout, I got 27. And for traumatic stress, I got a 40.
Oh. Compassion satisfaction. What do you think about that score in comparison to what the tool says?
I'm sorry, I didn't, can you repeat that?
Yeah, so compassion satisfaction is if your scores are below 40, you may either find problems with your job, or there may be some other reasons you might drive satisfaction activities other than your job. When you look at that score, did you think it was on par, or were you surprised by the scoring?
I was actually surprised. I really love what I do. The only thing there are stressors. I mean, I do private adoption, so there are stressors there. So I was actually surprised, though. I thought I was doing better.
Yeah, and so this is one of the tools I love because it definitely is a mirror. I definitely use this tool like more often than not because it's a very good barometer of like how things are really going versus how you may feel them to be going. What about for your burnout? How'd you feel about that score?
I'm surprised because I've been burned out multiple times. I've been doing child welfare for over 14 years and I've burned out many times. So I was surprised it wasn't, above 50.
But that also measures our resilience and our ability to adapt to conscious things and take care of ourselves, right? So like even though you felt like you'd have like super high compassion satisfaction and you thought your burnout would be through the roof, the fact that there is a discrepancy in that, but that you still don't feel burnt out at this stage and you still feel satisfaction with your job is important. So then starting to kind of like look at what is happening that is making it not be a mirror image when you look at it. Like, what are the things you could do to increase your compassion satisfaction? What are the things you can do to reduce your burnout or to continue to keep it at a good level?
What I do is if I need to, I take breaks. I am working on proper delegation so I don't overwhelm myself. And like Doris said before, self-care, I make sure I at least get a massage every 2 weeks. If I need to vent, I have certain friends that I talk to vent. And then whatever the problem is, I look at the problem and then try to figure out a solution. And if I'm unable to, I actually ask for input from other people. So that's pretty much how I work on it.
Love it. And what about secondary traumatic stress? I know that you know that I come from child welfare, just like you come from child welfare, and it is easy to take on all of that and take it home. So how did you feel about that number after having 14 years in the profession?
I was 40, so that is below. I feel two ways about it. Like before, I would have said it would have been a high score because I dealt with a lot of traumatic cases and I absorbed everything that poor child went through. But in the field that I'm in now, they're still kind of mirroring each other. I work with pregnant women, and some of them have traumatic backgrounds. They're, going through issues right now, with their pregnancy. They're on, substance abuse, domestic violence, all kinds of things. Sometimes and then I get phone calls at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, I do still have it, but I'm actually, working on it too.
It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I'm glad to hear as a colleague of mine that you're still doing well, changing and impacting the world. Your work is so invaluable to our community, especially to mine. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? You're welcome. Anyone else like to share? Don't see anything else in the chat.
So I can always share. I remember the first time that I ever did this with you, my burnout scores and secondary traumatic stress scores were off the charts. And it really made me, and I mean, like when I say off the charts, I was just like, what? I was way above average. And I remember really taking in stock, like where I was at that point, where I was in my career, but also the physical medical problems I was having. And I think a lot of times in our field, we think of burnout as like this badge of honor. Like I am doing so much for my clients. I'm so burned out, as if, being stressed out is like a good thing to show how much of a good worker you are, how much of a good professional you are. And I remember like doing this scoring with you and thinking about all the doctor's visits, all the specialist appointments, how physically sick. And I never connected the two. I was just always like, I'm just a sick person. I get sick all the time. And I wasn't connecting how like literally my job was making me physically sick. And I remember I stepped back from that position and I started working where in my current role. And about 6 months later, we did a training and I did my scores again. And I had never imagined that I could have such high scores in the compassion satisfaction. But it really took like really looking at what my role was, what my capacity was, and how I had glorified being stressed out all the time as proof that I'm an overachieving good worker. And I'm still a good worker. I'm still a good professional, still doing good things. But it was interesting to be able to see the scores change, because I never thought that could be something that could happen. I never thought it could be a change. So always
Absolutely.
hearing other people's scores, because if you're not satisfied with your score in one area, I promise you it can change.
Absolutely. And Sylvia and I worked together at the place that I burnt out physically and became emotionally unwell and almost died. Like I took my dream job. And this is so exciting. I'm doing all of the things. Yay. And it literally about killed me. Like it literally about killed me. Because I didn't know that there was, so I intrinsically knew, like in my head and cognitively, I was aware that there was a link between like my physical and physiological health and my emotional wellness and being burnt out. I had never seen it actually. Well, I didn't know that it was manifesting until I was like, oh, what do you mean I'm dying? That's not good. What's going on? And after 5 days in the hospital, a month and a half on bed rest, tons of specialists, sleep apnea tests, all types of like heart tests, all the gamut of the tests. They were like, we think you're just stressed. Like everything seems to be working out. And I really think this particular thing that you're doing is really about to take you out. And so like I do things now that like make me feel alive and that thrive. And I know not everybody owns their own company. So I can't just say, you know, like only do what you love. I want you to keep your job, but find ways to do the things that you don't like and make them more palatable as much as you can in the role that you're in. I'm also not saying quit your job if your burnout score is through the roof. We're talking about like finding ways to make adjustments. If you feel that the adjustment that you need to make is to leave your job, fine. But I'm not saying, hey, well, you know what? Tell your boss this pro-qual says this place is toxic. I'm out. That's not what I'm saying. To be very clear that they're like, because it seems like a quick fix, but if you're like me, you're the problem. Everywhere you go with that burnout personality, being the overworker, the overachiever, the never taking break one, it's gonna follow you, right? So it really is about us looking in to find out, okay, what can we do, and how can we then say, I'm going to inform the things that I do for self-care in a way that I'm able to carry this forward. Go back to the correct one. Something else I'd talk about on here is passive suicidal ideation. I used to call it the Mondays. I would get it on Sunday night, and I was just like, if I don't wake up in the morning and go to work tomorrow, y'all be good. Like, this job is horrible. Like, they can find somebody else. Like, and it sounds like those things can be very little. When they begin to happen over and over and over again, and they're tied to feelings of like hopelessness, helplessness, or despondence, and all because of the work that you're doing or how you're showing up, it really is important to begin to check that. People say like, oh, you know, I'm so ADHD, I'm so OCD, you know, I'm so depressed, I'm so suicidal, like, and they're just kind of terms you just kind of string together to like describe a pattern of behavior, but we don't talk about what passive suicidal ideation actually looks like. Like, if you're just like, man, like if I got in a car accident on the way to work and I never made it, I'd be okay. Like, and it sounds crazy, but when I talk to my other like burnout personality-ish people, like, and we talk about like that time they were in that role, they had a really high burnout score, they had a really high secondary traumatic stress score. They're like, yeah, I felt all the time like I didn't want to go back. I'd be okay, you know, being jobless or homeless or kind of fending for myself, figuring it out. They shared a very high volume of intrusive thoughts. And I don't mean like ghost stats, I mean like the overwhelm of work. Like, I sent this email and she's like, I'm not good enough. I'm gonna get a response back from my boss. And now I'm sitting down ruminating that hasn't happened. Now this presence of anxiety of how I'm going to do something that may not ever happen based on what's in my head, based on my experience from being burnt out or overwhelmed. And so like, I really like to wrap up the training and really, before we go into the Q&A, share and talk about like how vital it is to know yourself. Like, what are the things for you that become intrusive thoughts? What are the patterns of behavior when you're not rested, when you're not taking time for yourself, when you're not putting yourself first, when you're not eating, when you're not listening to music, when you're not sunbathing, when you're not traveling, when you're not getting your massages, that show up, you're like, man, like, I just can't shake this thought or feeling. Like, I constantly feel X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3. I constantly, and then that intrusion, that thought that kind of like meanders across your head kind of stops and is now like, anybody remember cassette players? Like, I'm cassette tape old enough, like that feels old. But like, you remember cassette players, you have to like take it out and like wind it up if it got caught or unloosed, and like that's kind of what happens if we have like an intrusive thought. It didn't ruin it, it slowed down or interrupted the process of productivity, right? So the tape was created to play, something about how it's playing interrupted and caused something to repeat that wasn't meant to repeat. So we had to take action into like taking it out of the thing, you know, making sure it's not like all crinkled up. So when you start to roll your little pencil in there to get it back to where it needs to be, like it's back on track. And so self-care is that thing that kind of winds back our proverbial cassette tapes. doing things that we love and only doing them. So I don't mean like binge watching things while you're doing work. I mean like taking time to actually do the things that fulfill you and fill your cup and make you feel great. And I also mean to start small, to change and to pivot as you need, because again, the success is in being consistent, not in how much you're doing. You only do one big thing once a year versus one small thing 50 times a year. You're 50 times better to do that one small thing. And to begin that practice of that personal peace procedure is super duper important, because it will decrease what we're referring to as passive suicidal ideation. It will decrease that helpless, hopeless, despondent. It will decrease your Mondays, like that feeling of like, I remember when I worked where Sylvia worked, I would cross over the intersection that would lead like from my home towards like, there was like the no turning back point. I remember my heart would beat fast. I would have like sweaty palms, or I'd be like super aware that my supervisor was very needy. So I had my laptop on my bed when I was going to sleep to make sure I didn't miss anything. I was constantly checking text messages and emails to make sure that I still like was the shining star and still felt good. But I wasn't really like ever able to care for myself and really like do things that made me feel alive. So we are at the 1:22 mark, and I like to leave some time for questions. This is our little QR code. You connect with it on here. You can get to all of the things that we do through here, but I also like to leave this last 5 to 8 minutes for questions, comments, concerns, complaints, follow-up things, notes of things people have learned that were like aha moments or like greatest takeaways. So I will open the floor both via the chat and via via turning on your via talking. Oh my gosh. There's a QR code. I know Aisha has, there's all of our information where we're located. We are a hybrid practice. We practice in Florida, New Jersey, and Minnesota. We have office space here in Pembroke Pines, but our clinicians practice in those 3 states. I know Aisha has a thingamajiggy that you guys need to do. Oh, it's in the chat for you guys to fill out the training survey. I believe that's also how you get your CEUs, by completing all of that and sending an email. Make sure you're doing that. Sylvia, one thing that I've learned about preventing burnout is you never stop preventing it, because burnout, like a roach, will find a way to get in. Like the things that will try and like hem you up, do all the things, it will show up and try to get you. So it's constantly that creative way of figuring out how to avoid the sugar ants and to avoid doing all the other things. Like you feel like sometimes like what works for you, it just stops working. Like sometimes the massages don't have the same impact. Sometimes they're just taking like the 30 minutes of sunlight by yourself doesn't. I even dare to sometimes having my cup of coffee does not have the same impact. If I'm like so like beyond frazzled and tired and overwhelmed, it's just not enough. Like my favorite cup of coffee is not enough. All the sunshine in the world is not enough. And so that's that. I don't know, Aisha, if you want to close the event, if anyone has anything they want to say, any takeaways, any give backs, any feedback. If not, I will turn it over to
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen while we're just having the discussion. And I think for me, one of the most important things that I've learned, and you're seeing my PowerPoint, I hope?
Yes, ma'am.
So for everyone, I just brought up the PowerPoint. It has the QR code for you to be able to fill out the survey, but I also put that in the chat box as well, so that you can just, if you want to copy the link or click the link in the chat or scan the QR code. If you need a certificate, or if you are a licensed clinician or certified professional and you want CEUs, please email me directly. My email is amcdonald@unitedwaybroward.org. You have to send me an email to request certificates and CEUs so that you can make sure that you have those for your records. For me, Jessica, I think one of the last things that you just said was so important. It's that you never stop working to prevent burnout. I think a lot of the times we wait until we are in the moment, and then we're like, oh, wait, I need help. And I always liken it to, physical illnesses. We take vitamins to prevent getting sick. We do eat our healthy snacks and foods. We do things to prevent ourselves from getting to the point of sickness. We don't just always rely on treatment. And so, I always think of it the same when it comes to the stress and the burnout. Like, what are we doing to prevent ourselves from getting to the extreme? And I was in the chat box when you all were putting your self-care things, because I like to steal self-care ideas. I'm definitely a Netflix binger. I'm definitely a sleeper. Like, what can I do on a regular basis? Because I think sometimes when we think about self-care, we always think of the extreme things or the expensive things, or I want to travel once a year. But like, there are things we can do every single day to take care of ourselves. And so I'm hoping that we could at least, that's one takeaway that people got from this was, what are you doing every day to prevent yourself from getting to that point?
One thing a girlfriend of mine had me do that I thought was like so silly at first. I started doing it. She was like, we live in Florida. Go outside to get some sun. Like, just go outside. She's like, even if it's only 3 to 5 minutes, go outside and get some vitamin D.
Yeah.
And like, it really helps. It sounds like all heebie-jeebies, but it really helps, like, to improve mood, like give me a little burst of energy. I'm sweaty, but I have more energy. So if you can't do anything else, take that away with you.
We're boosting that serotonin, right?
Indeed.
I remember, especially working in like a hybrid model, there are days where I work from home all day long, teaching trainings, and from 8 to 5, I'm just sitting before a computer, just working constantly. And I remember my husband came to me one day and was like, hey, let's go take a walk. And I'm like, I don't have time to take a walk. We'll have to get in the car, drive to a park, put on sneakers. And he was like, no, we can just walk around the building. Let's just go outside and take a walk. And I was like, here again, I was thinking in the extremes, and it was something so simple, took 7 minutes. And I got back to my computer and I was like, wait, what? That did help.
Indeed, one time for good husbands, I sit here with my breakfast getting cold because he was like, you gotta eat. And I was like, what are you doing in here? But like, he knew that I needed to take care of myself, and I would have foregone it to work for the whole day. So thank God for good husbands and support and community that will tell us like, hey, you can do this small thing and start pivot and change. So thank you guys so much for your time. I really appreciate you, Aisha. Thank you for constantly inviting me back to work with our community. I really appreciate you guys. Have an amazing day. Bye, guys.
Please email me for your certificates or your CEUs. I will try to get this recording uploaded within the next few days. Once that is uploaded, if you need the link, if you'd like to share it, please email me for the link and I'll make sure I get that to you. And if you are watching the recording, thank you. Thank you for watching this. Thank you all. Have a good day.